p.m. to bring you the organizers, movement and thought leaders, elected officials, and community members who are creating solutions to the issues that impact your life on the local, state, national, and international levels. And we have on the board supporting us tonight, engineer extraordinaire Troy Wilmore.
Troy.
We need the applause sound for that.
I'm a beast.
Oh, okay, there you go. Our guest tonight is State Rep Chris Rabb, a good friend of this program, the representative from the 200th Pennsylvania Legislative District. And of course, each week we welcome you as our primary guest. So to join the conversation, feel free to call 1-866-361-0900 or 215-634-8065. You can also listen online at www.wordradio.com, WURDradio.com. And we are live on Facebook at 4WURD. That's FORWURD. So, this is our second week as Solutions. How does it feel?
Solutions. Feels very good.
Yes, it does feel good.
I'm very excited about it.
It's always good to feel like you're a solution.
Yes.
Rather than the problem.
Absolutely. Well, that's because other people make us feel like we're the problem anyway.
That's right.
So we need to make sure we have the solutions to their problem.
Right.
That is them and not us.
So, as always, a lot happening.
Oh, my goodness.
In the political world. What's on your mind this Friday?
There's a couple things that we need to figure out. Like, one, in the political world, this update, something happened earlier today. It was announced in the news. Somebody actually set themselves on fire in front of the White House. Wow. And don't have a lot of information about it right yet. Waiting to get some more updates. But as soon as we have more, we'll let you know about that. They wound up closing Pennsylvania Avenue in D.C.
Wow.
Second thing, but I mean, Donald Trump is setting us all on fire with his latest announcement that he is going to place undocumented immigrants in sanctuary cities, of which Philadelphia is a sanctuary city.
Yay, I welcome that.
And he's actually saying that the Democrats say they want open arms and open borders. He's like, well, here, I'm going to place these people in your cities with the hope that they cause problems so that people will then turn around. And he was primarily trying to place people in San Francisco, where Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, she represents that district. So he was trying to place folk there. And it's actually an interesting challenge because there's a lot of homelessness, a lot of people housing insecure in San Francisco just because of the cost of living there.
Because the tech industry took over that city.
Absolutely. And so he's trying to find ways to really damage the reputation of Congresswoman Pelosi and the movement to welcome immigrants in. So it's very dangerous.
Such cynical, hateful politics coming from that president.
Absolutely.
He is.
Why is he still president?
I can't wait for him to be gone.
Why is he still president? I just don't understand this. I really don't.
You're fired.
Exactly.
Absolutely. He needs to be fired. No doubt. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he has not been fired yet. And this is very much a problem for a lot of people. And I'm kind of sick of it. So.
Well, relatedly, I think I mentioned this to you before. I think this week the city started issuing municipal IDs.
Yes.
And this is, I don't know much about this. I just heard about this late yesterday. But this is a move that has been pushed for by the immigrants' rights community because many undocumented immigrants can't get identification and therefore can't conduct a lot of the daily business of your life without any kind of an ID. So, issued from the state. So getting the city to issue an ID is very helpful to people. So
Absolutely.
That is now available, I think, as of this week. And the immigrants' rights activist community is encouraging people to go out and get one of these IDs, even if you have a state-issued ID, like a driver's license or a non-driver's ID, to get a municipal ID to demonstrate that this is an important thing and that if there's a demand for it, they'll continue to do it and support this process, which helps undocumented immigrants get by and not be victimized by the system.
Right. It also sets it up so that they're not the only ones carrying these IDs, because if having a municipal ID is potentially a way that people can identify undocumented folk versus documented folk. So the more
Right.
folk who are citizens or who have green cards or some form of refugee status that get the IDs as well, the better off and safer it will be for all people. And I mean, I want to remind folk too that, you know, a lot of times when we start thinking about undocumented folk, we often think, you know, mostly of folk coming from Central and South America and, you know, the North America, which Mexico is also in. And the reality is that there are folk from the Caribbean, there are folk from Africa, there are folk from other countries. There are black folk that are caught up in that struggle as well. So we need to make sure that we are not vilifying these folk, but actually welcoming them with open arms into our city and extending what Philadelphia really means, which is a city of brotherly love and sisterly affection.
That's right. Now, Philly.com posted an article yesterday about this, and it says more than 1,000 people have already gotten Philly municipal IDs, and appointments are full. So apparently you can call 311 to make an appointment, but you have to make an appointment, I guess, and it says all the appointments are full right now.
Okay.
But they do have a picture of Mayor Kenny's Philly ID, City of Philadelphia identification card that he got made. Of course, I'm sure he was first in line and probably did not have to wait in line. But that's cool. Very
Yes.
cool. I'm gonna get mine. If I can get an appointment, I'll get mine.
Yes, that would be great. I might have to, well, I can't get one actually.
No, because you don't live here anymore.
I don't. I actually thinking about buying a property here or something. So
Oh,
I have
okay.
some property in the city. Absolutely. I gotta
Just in
stay
case?
rooted. No, it's, you know, I'm up here a lot, so I just need, you know, I need a spot.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure that out.
Airbnb it on the side.
Hey, could do that. I didn't think about that. Thank you for that. You're just helping me generate some money. That's
Exactly.
right. Get that money. Although I do not believe in unfettered capitalism, you know, but hey, I got to still live.
Hey, if you're not exploiting people for it, I support.
You support. Okay,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So what else is on your mind?
So, so actually, this has been a funny thing. So there has been an Obama official that has been indicted as a result of the Mueller investigation. The former White House counsel who left the White House under the Obama administration, left the White House, and then went to go work for Paul Manafort. Was caught up in
Dumb move. Dumb move.
Absolutely caught up in a deal with Ukraine and was a part of this whole thing about Ukraine understanding the Russians were investigating. He was indicted on charges, federal charges around the Mueller investigation.
For lying or something?
Right. So then the White House has come out and is like, look, there's an Obama administration official that has been indicted. Except when you go to find out that the guy was no longer White House counsel, he had left to go make more money in the private sector, and he was working for Paul Manafort, and that he was actually working for the Republicans at the time.
Right.
So there's a whole lot of challenges going on with that. I don't remember his name off the top of my head here. It was in here. I had it earlier, you know, so that's certainly part of the challenge that, you know, the spin cycle that's going on right now with the Trump administration.
Every day is a spin cycle with them. Ugh.
Well, then Attorney General Barr has announced that he's investigating the Obama administration spying,
Quote unquote, spying
on the Trump campaign during the election cycle. Although former FBI Director James Comey is up in arms because he's like, we had federally signed warrants from federal judges giving us permission to go do this investigation.
Who were Republicans, by the way, who had been appointed by Republican presidents, these judges.
So there's no spying there, but Barr has evidently drunk the Trump Kool-Aid and is now running around and talking about the fact that they were spying on the Trump administration. Of course, you know, Donald Trump took and ran with that.
He also talked about in the hearing the other day where he was being questioned, he also brought up the wall as a way to deal with the opioid crisis. Did you hear that part of the testimony? I'm like,
I heard
really?
something about that. I mean, but
why are you talking about a wall, Attorney General?
because his boss told him he has to talk about the wall.
He's a hack.
And, well, we all knew he was a hack before he got in there. He should have never gotten in, but the Democrats didn't have enough spine to do
I'm
anything
just
about
reiterating
it. So
I'm just reiterating the fact that he's a hack.
Yes.
For the record.
So here's some good news. Georgetown students voted to approve reparations for the descendants of slaves who were sold so that Georgetown University could get started. And so
awesome.
There were
that's great.
Slaves. Actually, the priest, which is a whole other thing, owned slaves, and they sold.
This is a Jesuit. Are they a Jesuit?
They are
institution?
a Jesuit school. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So they sold the slaves so that they could purchase the land to build the school, and so the students approved reparations, which will each student will have to pay $27, and the money will go towards a fund to fully pay for the education of the descendants of those slaves.
That's great. They've been working on that issue for a long time down at Georgetown.
Well, they need to be working on it. It's a really terrible thing that they did. So,
it's horrible. Well, and so many universities have that kind of a history.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it's that's the thing. I mean, this whole notion of reparations has even come up in the presidential, elections, and it's actually, we really need to have a deeper conversation about reparations looks like. I mean, 20 years ago, people just looked at you like you're crazy when you start talking about reparations. But when we really begin to understand the systemic issues that continually perpetuate people living in poverty, and the bias in the criminal justice system, economic oppression, and the cycles that exist around that, reparations has to be a vehicle to deal with the systemic issues so that people can actually get to a fair starting place. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that schools like Georgetown and others will begin to pick it up, because that's not the only school that's got a slave history that they need to deal with.
Exactly.
There's a whole lot of schools in the South,
Yep.
and some in the North, that need to deal with their slave history. I just want to mention there's a school called Radcliffe in Massachusetts, but my family's name from when they were in Virginia was Radcliffe, and that was not their name when they came over. I'm just saying. So are you saying that if this reparation thing takes off, you might be getting a check? Well, I don't know. We could see. Actually,
from Radcliffe?
Could be. My wife's family were slaves owned by
enslaved people.
Yes, enslaved people. I'm sorry. Slaves is a problem. Okay, I'll leave it alone. So the enslaved people.
Who were enslaved.
We were enslaved.
They were not they were not born slave. They were not inherently.
They were free in spirit, but physically in bondage.
Okay.
Does that work?
That's fine.
Okay, great. So they're the people that were born spiritually free, mentally free, emotionally free, but forced into bondage that eventually amounted into mental, emotional, and physical oppression. Actually, were the folk that founded Clemson University. And her family were the enslaved folk that belonged to that family that founded Clemson. We actually went down there years ago for our first family, her first family reunion on that side, and discovered that her great grandmother was a slave of the folk that was an enslaved person on the plantation of the folk that started Clemson University. And we were like, can we get some free tuition?
Right.
I'm like, hey, I was talking to my daughters. I'm like, y'all, you need to lift this up and apply and to tell your story. And my sister-in-law, who actually was doing the research on this, is actually the professor of African American Studies at Stockton State. So this is like really like serious academic research.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you need to go down there and tell the story, and then we need to hit the endowment. I'm just saying. There's some sweat equity, some investment, some things of that nature that need to be built up there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm impressed that a number of the Democratic presidential candidates have agreed to the idea that there should be that the I can't remember the name of the bill, but I mean the exact name of the bill, but the reparations bill that John Conyers had been putting in year after year after year for decades, and now has been put in by Sheila Jackson Lee.
Yes, the crown. She wears the crown.
Yes, the crown of braids.
Yes.
Many people say that they would sign that into legislation, many of these candidates, which is surprising. So
that's because it's sexy right now to talk about racial justice.
That's right.
But anyway.
Well, they know that they need to.
HR 40. It's
Thank
HR
you.
40. Thank you.
Troy.
Thank you, Troy.
HR 40.
Troy is the man. He's on top of that.
Yes.
He picked it up for us. All right. Well, look, we have to get ready to go to our first break, and our guest is on the line. We're going to be joined by our friend, regular on the show, State Rep Chris Rabb, who's going to tell us about a bunch of things that's going on in the state of Pennsylvania that we need to be aware of. So you are listening to Solutions on WURD. It's Amadi Braxton, Dwayne Royster. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
Tons of slow spots on the Philly roads. This traffic report is sponsored by La Quinta by Wyndham. On the Platte Bridge eastbound, it's crawling 95 to the midspan of the bridge. Left lane blocked by a crash. Just the right lane is getting by. Schuylkill Expressway eastbound, that jams getting on at 202 down to Belmont and the Boulevard to University. Westbound Schuylkill jams Vare to the Vine and Montgomery all the way out to 476. On the Vine Expressway eastbound, you're at a crawl from 76 across to 95. Westbound jams the Ben Franklin Parkway into the Schuylkill merge. 95 as you head northbound jams Naaman's Road to the Commodore Barry, again from Penn's Landing to Bridge Street, then Academy to Woodhaven. South on 95 is jamming up as well, Academy to Girard, and the airport down to the Commodore Barry. Blue Route 476 southbound jams anywhere from St. David's all the way down to I-95. Northbound is jammed from I-95 up to Route 1, and the Boulevard northbound, that jams the Schuylkill Expressway to 9th Street. On the Ben Franklin Bridge westbound into PA, jam traffic approaching 8th and Vine. Walt Whitman Bridge eastbound is heavy into Jersey. That's because 42 southbound, it jams from the Walt Whitman Bridge down to 295. Stop and go on 676 southbound from Atlantic Avenue down to 42, and 295 southbound is jammed anywhere from 38 down to 42. La Quinta by Wyndham, now part of Wyndham Rewards. Earn and redeem Wyndham Rewards points for free nights at La Quinta and thousands of other Wyndham's Rewards properties worldwide. Book direct at lq.com. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Brendan Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a Word weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Tammy Souza.
Cloudy skies overnight with periods of steady rain lingering into early Saturday morning. Overnight lows will be in the low 60s. On Saturday, get ready to soar as skies turn partly sunny in the afternoon and highs reach into the mid and upper 70s, perhaps even a few 80s around the area. On Sunday, we'll see the return of rain in the afternoon or evening. Temperatures will be in the mid and upper 70s once again. That rain will continue into Monday morning. Remember, you can get the forecast anytime you like and our First Alert Doppler radar. Just download the free NBC 10 app.
Young and Woke. Fridays on Wake Up with Word. Hosted by the Reverend Professor Dr. Aaron Smith. 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. right here on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
I'm Mama Dietz. At Dietz & Watson, we've spent over 75 years focusing on the details. This philosophy started back when my father learned how to make franks and sausages the right way in Germany. Today, we put that same level of detail into everything we make. If it isn't good enough for our family, it isn't good enough for yours. Dietz & Watson, caring like only family can since 1939.
Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
The National Association of University Women presents a youth conference, April 13th at Impact Your World in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Topics include cyberbullying, financial aid, and youth entrepreneurship. Visit 2019 NAUW-youthconference.eventbrite.com.
Councilman Alan Dom is building a brighter future for Philadelphia's children, fighting for more school funding, raising funds to support tech education, and personally donating to teach computer coding at Coded by Kids. Listen to Coded by Kids instructor Ashley and CEO Sylvester Mobley.
There are a lot of kids that will have a brighter future thanks to Alan Dom and his contributions to Coded by Kids.
Having Alan Dom make a commitment to transforming people's lives through technology has helped us. I can't thank Alan Dom enough.
Fundraising to teach computer coding, personally donating thousands. Alan Dom is fighting to give our children the opportunities they deserve and preparing them for success. Big ideas, big achievements. A better city for all of us. Vote Dom, Democrat for City Council at large. Paid for by Dom for City Council.
Easter is approaching and Leo's has the best selection of men's and boys suits and tuxedos in all sizes, featuring Sean John and Steve Harvey. Men's suits start at $99 and boys suits start at $49. Check out the largest selection of men's straw hats and caps, featuring Biltmore, Dobbs, Stetsons, Bailey, and Kangol, with the largest inventory of Stacy Adams shoes for men and boys in North Philadelphia. Leo's is a one-stop shop located at 2705 Germantown Avenue. Ask about the WURD family discount.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at forward. Word TV. Black Talk Media.
Welcome back to Solutions on Word with Amadi Braxton and Dwayne Royster. We are excited to be here with you all this evening, as we are every Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. We just want to give a quick shout out. My man Clifford Ryan from up in Syracuse, New York is listening. Cliff received an award this week for his work with the OGs up there in Syracuse working to prevent gun violence. This man individually has stopped 42 shootings in the city of Syracuse by getting in between people that are getting ready to shoot each other. Powerful brother, powerful brother. Much love for Cliff and all the work that he's doing up there with the OGs as well as with the ACTS organization in the city of Syracuse. So we are now joined by a friend and regular on Solutions. Well, formerly it was the different name of the show, but now Solutions, who brings us on a regular basis information about what's happening in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm excited to welcome State Rep Chris Rabb of the 200th Pennsylvania Legislative District in the northwest section of the city onto the show today. State Rep Chris Rabb, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Great. Thanks for having me back.
No problem. It's good to hear your voice. Now, there's a lot happening in Pennsylvania right now. Why don't you lay it out for us, and then we'll dive in.
Oh goodness, it has been a wild ride since the last time I've been on the show. A lot's been happening in Harrisburg, not the least of which you may recall there was an invocation by one of my new
Stephanie Borowitz
colleagues.
Yes.
Yes. And she'd only been in office for a few months, and she was asked to give a prayer, and she ended up alienating a lot of us in the chamber for what we perceived as something verging on Islamophobic.
Absolutely.
And just really, really divisive and inappropriate.
There was an attack prayer.
It was,
yes. It was like a weaponized prayer.
Right. Absolutely.
Exactly, or I call it a hate prayer, like hate speech. It was awful. But interestingly enough, Wednesday we had a special joint session. We haven't had a special joint session since 9/11. So it's been 18 years, and
wow.
we brought together to talk about to pay homage to those who were fallen as the result of the shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Squirrel Hill, Pittsburgh, and it was very beautiful. And and a number of speakers talked about white supremacy and intolerance and gun violence and such. So it wasn't just for the Jewish community. It was very holistic and universal, and I was very moved by it. And the last rabbi who spoke, whose name I forget, talked about our inaction as a legislature, and I'm so glad she did it.
Oh, wow.
She just put it out there. But the invocation on Wednesday was by Representative Aaron Coffer, Jewish American Republican, and he opened up with a Jewish prayer in Hebrew, and then he said "Assalamu alaikum," and I was blown away. Now,
wow.
my colleagues don't even know what that means. Don't know that he was saying Arabic, and he was bringing that universal
greeting,
love of God and appreciating greeting.
Yeah.
And then he got off the podium, the rostrum, and went and walked up the middle aisle and shook Representative Movita Johnson Harrell's hand and welcomed her into the body. It was a beautiful and subtle move, because I don't think most of his Republican colleagues knew what had happened.
Wow.
And that's what invocations are supposed to be. They're about service and unity and civility and humanity. And so he was just a class act. I don't know him well, but a bunch of us, at least on the Democratic side, warmly received his invocation and appreciated the spirit in which he gave it. So that was a major moment that I wanted to share, because so often we hear about Harrisburg as a cesspool and all the problems, but within that, there's some moments of beauty. But on the legislative front, there are some things that came forth, and I've been pretty busy myself. I normally like to talk about what's been happening in Harrisburg generally, but I want to let folks know what I've done recently that is of particular interest to a lot of black folk in Philly and around the state. After the Rosfeld verdict, non-guilty verdict, the police officer who killed that young man, Antoine Rose, shot an unarmed teen, and he got off. The next day I introduced a bill that I've been working on for 2 years that makes it nearly impossible for a police department to hire a bad cop with a bad record from another police department. That happened with this guy Rosfeld. It's happened with the killer cop who killed Tamir Rice.
That's right.
Cleveland. And this is a pattern. And chiefs of police do not like bringing on bad cops.
Right.
It's not in their best interest. It's not in anyone's best interest. And if they sneak on because they weren't fired, they just left, then they have more opportunity to get on another police department. And the good cops who are in that force don't know who the new guy is and don't know all the baggage he's brought to that new community. So this is a bill that I'm very proud of. It's called the Interdepartmental Police Hiring Reform Bill. And a number of us from the Black Caucus are going to be doing a press conference on Tuesday in Harrisburg. We're introducing a bunch of bills for our police accountability legislative package. So stay tuned for that. That's coming on Tuesday. And that's something that could really move things along in terms of accountability and transparency and building public trust that has been so degraded because of all of these bad deeds by police departments that are infused with some very problematic figures who are using the badge to do whatever it is they want to do.
Absolutely.
And more recently, I've introduced a bill to create a complete census commission. You know, the census is right around the corner. And some of the most vulnerable folks who we pay a lot of money for in terms of human services are not being counted because they may be homeless, they may be severely disabled, they may not speak English as a first language, they may live in deep poverty and harder to find than the rest of us. And so this is a bill to create an apparatus to make sure that Pennsylvania and Pennsylvanians get every single penny from the federal government we deserve. That's why we have a census, to document every living soul, to make sure that there's the proper allocation state by state. The states distribute it within our state. And if we don't count everyone, we're not getting our fair share. And every Pennsylvanian needs to get their fair share. So this bill creates a mechanism to empower communities to count folks in the most important way as it relates to government and the resources we pay for through our taxes.
Absolutely.
And on a related note, I've joined an amicus filing against the U.S. Department of Commerce as one of 190 elected officials around the country to make sure that the question of citizenship is not included in the census questionnaire. For people who don't know, we haven't had this question because we need to document everyone, whether they're a citizen or not. And the concern is in this Trump era that if a census taker is asking someone about their status, they're going to, and they are an undocumented neighbor of ours, that they're not going to want to participate in the census for fear that that information will be shared with ICE, which is very standard for a lot of agencies. That can't happen with regard to this process, but just the fear that the census could be used to round up our neighbors, our colleagues who are not documented, is something that could really hurt the whole point of a census. So I'm hoping that we will win that case in court and that ultimately that question will not be asked, not just in Pennsylvania, but statewide.
What do you think the likelihood is of winning that case? It's such a serious issue that the Trump administration is trying to do this. It could result in terrible outcomes in terms of discouraging people from answering the census and therefore resulting in less monies distributed and allocated to different states. It's just, and let alone the idea that people who do answer might get, targeted by ICE.
Absolutely.
It's really, really a devastating thing they're trying to do. So do you have
it hurts everyone.
Yeah.
It hurts everyone because if
that's the silly thing about it.
Yeah, we don't. If our neighbors, fellow residents of Philly or across the state are undercounted, that means all of Pennsylvania gets less money.
That's right.
And that's money that goes towards the most expensive services in our $34 billion state budget. Our number one expense is human services. Number two is education, followed by incarceration. Those three expenses account for 90% of the $34 billion we have allocated for our budget.
Wow.
And that means that we're not going to have enough because of that undercounting. And we don't need to push people deeper into the shadows, deeper into the corners of society. We need to bring them out into the light and embrace them as fellow Pennsylvanians, irrespective of their status. Because you know what? They pay taxes too. They pay taxes too, and they're not all Latinx. That's the other thing, and I'm saying this on a black radio station, right? There's an assumption that all these folks are Mexican. It's not true. There are black folk who are undocumented.
Absolutely.
There are white people, white as the driven snow. There is a large group of Irish Americans who are undocumented. That's where the derogatory term WAP comes from, without papers. That wasn't referring to Italians who were really considered less white than other folks 100 years ago. So this is nothing new. We want fair is fair, and everyone deserves their fair share of dollars that they paid for through paying taxes. And so we're hoping that this happens. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. I don't know how it's going to go. But the ACLU says that in these cases, we've won four out of 4 times. On the things related to this. So this would be number 5, and we're hoping to win again and make sure that this is not included in the census questionnaire.
Well, all right, ACLU.
Yeah, quick question for you, Rep. And I know we're going to go to a break here in a minute. But I'm sure you've probably heard, you and your colleagues have heard, that the president is planning on targeting sanctuary cities with undocumented folk. And part of this was really trying to go after Nancy Pelosi, and they were looking at San Francisco, but Philadelphia is, one of the largest sanctuary cities in the country.
Yes.
How are folk wrestling with that right now? Because, Pennsylvania has an issue with the fact that Philadelphia is a sanctuary city.
Oh, absolutely. I have colleagues who they're very much opposed to it, even though they don't know what it means. To be a sanctuary city basically says we are not complicit in helping ICE round up people.
That's all it means.
It's not our job. That's the job of immigration, that our police should not be used for this purpose, that courthouses should not be surveilled and monitored by federal agents. That basically, unless you have a court order, you need to keep moving. That's all the sanctuary campus is, all a sanctuary city is, and that's just the appropriate way to be. That should be the default. It's nothing
insidious, or we're spending millions of dollars to recruit people who are undocumented. Nothing like that. It's just saying we need to follow the letter of the law. The letter of the law does not require us to coordinate efforts with ICE, who are doing some very shady things that we should not be supportive of.
This reminds me of slave catchers, right? It's just that the whole mentality is just like the slave catcher mentality.
It absolutely is. And, you know, as a genealogist, I had family in Ohio. My ancestor was one of 10, and his parents fled because of the federal law, the Fugitive Slave Act. They fled Ohio, northern Ohio. So this was not in the South. This is the 1850s. They fled northern Ohio to Canada for fear that one of their white neighbors would, you know, be deputized to kidnap their children.
Wow.
What is that? What is it? I mean, the fragility of black freedom then and now is emblematic of where we are as a society, where we are as a nation, and what we truly embrace in terms of values. But that was a decision they made 150 years ago, and families now are making similar decisions because of public policy that elected officials like me, well, not like me, but in my position, are making that impact 12.8 million Pennsylvanians. And let us not forget that we have a immigration prison in the middle of the state in Berks County that I'm trying to shut down through legislation because the executive branch is not stepping up to do the humane thing and shut it down, where they have families who are incarcerated, where they could be freed to seek asylum through the proper legal channels, but they're not.
Yeah, we need to shut it down. Well, let's do this. We got to run to a break. You're going to hang with us for another segment here, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. We are very appreciative of that. And we're going to dig into some of the other things. And you got a couple other things to share with us as well. So we want to make sure we get all that in and keep everybody up to date what's happening in the state of Pennsylvania. So you're listening to Solutions on WRD. This is Monty Braxton, Dwayne Royster. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
Lots of busy spots on the Philly roads. This traffic report is sponsored by La Quinta by Wyndham. Schuylkill eastbound, that is jamming 202 to Belmont. Then again, the Boulevard to University. Jams again 28th Street to Passyunk. Westbound 76 jams there to the Vine and Montgomery all the way out to 476. On the Vine Expressway eastbound, you are crawling 76 across the 95. Westbound is jammed from Broad Street back to the Schuylkill Expressway. 95 northbound stop and go out of Delaware, Naaman's Road to the Commodore Barry. Then again, the airport to the Walt Whitman Bridge. Penn's Landing to Bridge Street, and from Academy to Woodhaven. South on 95 jams Academy to Girard, and from the airport down to the Commodore Barry Bridge. Blue Route northbound is heavy getting on at 95. Southbound slows from St. David's down to Route 1. Boulevard northbound jams the Schuylkill Expressway into Broad Street. Still jammed on the Platte Bridge eastbound from 95 to the Midspan. An earlier crash has cleared. Walt Whitman Bridge eastbound is jammed into Jersey. That's because 42 southbound jams from the Walt Whitman Bridge down to 295. 676 southbound jams from Atlantic Avenue down to 42. 295 southbound jams from about 73 to 42. And the Jersey Turnpike now southbound jams for 6 miles between the Cooper Service Plaza and Route 73. La Quinta by Wyndham, now part of the Wyndham Rewards. Earn and redeem Wyndham Rewards points for free nights at La Quinta and thousands of other Wyndham Rewards properties worldwide. Book direct at lq.com. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Brendan Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a word weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Tammy Souza.
Cloudy skies overnight with periods of steady rain lingering into early Saturday morning. Overnight lows will be in the low 60s. On Saturday, get ready to soar as skies turn partly sunny in the afternoon and highs reach into the mid and upper 70s, perhaps even a few 80s around the area. On Sunday, we'll see the return of rain in the afternoon or evening. Temperatures will be in the mid and upper 70s once again. That rain will continue into Monday morning. Remember, you can get the forecast anytime you like and our First Alert Doppler radar. Just download the free NBC 10 app.
The Source.
The Source.
Weekdays 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Special guest host Renee Chenault Patin every Monday in April.
The Source. Exclusively on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
Philadelphia Theater Company presents How to Catch Creation, March 22nd through April 14th. Christina Anderson's new play follows the dreams, losses, and loves of 4 friends in San Francisco who are creating their professional and personal legacies. Ignited by the works of a Black queer feminist writer from long ago, their lives begin to intersect in unexpected ways. For tickets, visit philatheaterco.org or call 215-985-0420.
This is Cody Anderson. Palace Travel provided me with one of the most memorable trips I've taken to Ghana, West Africa. Palace Travel specializes in tours to Africa, including Ghana, Senegal, and South Africa. Throughout the year, Palace Travel has scheduled trips to Africa, including the next Panafest celebration in Ghana, July 2019. The trip of a lifetime, the historic return of the African diaspora after 400 years in the Americas, August 5th to 14th. Africa's improvement on Coachella, the annual Afrochella Festival in Ghana, December 27th to January 3rd. Ring in the new year in Ghana. Call Palace Travel to reserve your place on one of their scheduled Africa trips with convenient payment plans. Call Palace Travel today at 215-471-8555 or visit their website at palacetravel.com.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation?
Follow us on social media
Using the hashtag onWURD.
Be heard.
Stay connected to Word Radio.
Independent Black Media.
New Season Books, your source for stories that heal, is now accepting pre-orders for Sex and the Church Girl, a powerful collection of essays exploring the views of Christian women on sex, sexuality, and the church. Available May 14th. Visit newseasonbooks.com for details.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now.
Tune in on YouTube at onWURD
or on Facebook at Forward.
Word TV.
Black Talk Media.
Welcome back to Solutions. This is Abadi Braxton, one of your hosts, along with Bishop Dwayne Royster.
Hello.
And we're continuing our conversation with State Representative Chris Rabb of the 200th Legislative District, talking about a variety of issues and initiatives, legislative initiatives he's been championing and initiating. And Chris, before we get into the other topics you have, I just wanted to draw listeners' attention. We were talking before the break about the citizenship question on the census and the threat that poses to undocumented people, undocumented immigrants, as well as all of us in terms of the threat it poses to reduction in funding and suppressing people actually answering the census. But relatedly, there was new rules of conduct brokered by the Sheriff's Department around disallowing ICE to arrest people inside Philadelphia courthouses. That took place, I think it went into effect this week. So it forces ICE agents to identify themselves. Many times they appear they enter courthouses in plain clothes, and basically stalk different undocumented immigrants who might be either facing charges themselves, they could be witnesses to a case, and they target them and arrest them as soon as they get the opportunity. And this would require people to identify themselves and for judges in those different courtrooms to be aware of if there's an ICE agent in the courtroom. Now, according to this article, many immigrants' rights advocates say that this is not going to have much of any effect because the ICE agents are still inside the courthouse and can still carry out their activities. They just can't really do it as secretively as they would have in the past.
Right. And I think the bigger issue is there are a lot of people who say, well, you know what, they didn't go about it the right way, so they need to go back home. Well, what if they made that decision 30 years ago, and they have a child,
right?
And they're a single parent, and that child was born in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to that child? That child is then goes into protective custody, right? And we pay that bill. We're destroying a family because of a immigration policy that is long overdue for real reform, and so it's inhumane. And then the other thing is, it's a specious argument to say, well, you know what, they should go back because we did it the right way and so forth. But there was a time when, based on what country you came from, and this wasn't that long ago, you weren't welcome to be an American citizen because you were too dark. right? They liberalized the immigration policy under JFK in the 60s. And the reason they did that was because they needed people with a certain background training to help with the space exploration. And the country needed more skilled laborers in very specific ways. So they changed the system. We've always changed immigration policy based on the needs of the country, the government, the culture, and such. And it's never one way. And the biggest point I'd like to make is the biggest group of quote-unquote illegal immigrants are the colonists to begin with.
Come on now.
Fathers.
Preach.
If you're not indigenous, you have no dime in this dollar. If you're not indigenous, you cannot say, or if you were brought here in chains, right? Because we didn't choose to be here.
That's right.
Those of us who are descendants of enslaved Africans, we did not choose to be. We did not conquer anything. We were brought over as property. And so if we're going to be real about when we talk about following the rules, we got to question the rules themselves and who decides what an immigrant is and what is lawful. That is a very slippery slope. So
got to be consistent.
Come on now.
Be consistent, then lay it all out there.
Right.
I want to know who invited the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria to land on the shores and allow them to come here to this country. I'm trying to figure out who would let the people come into Jamestown and take over land and colonize there. I wonder if our indigenous siblings had a immigration system like we do today, if they would allow them to come across the shores in the first place, or they would have repelled them and sent them back across the sea, hungry and starving.
Where is that island that I think it was this year? There's some island, very remote island, where the people basically don't want any outsiders there.
Yeah. They killed a missionary,
And they killed a missionary who came over because they were like, and the missionary had been warned that outsiders were not welcomed there and that it was dangerous, and he went anyway, and they took him out.
Because he wanted to spread the gospel.
You're talking about a group of people who've been on that island for generations, many generations, and they would be exposed to all the things that we're immune to.
Yeah.
And so just by that person going to the shores could have infected all of those folks just because he wanted to proselytize, because that was his personal belief. He put all of those people at risk.
That's right.
And so, and people said, this is why we got to respect their sovereignty.
That's right.
And the other thing, too, is a lot of indigenous communities don't believe in ownership of land.
Right.
That's right.
So when we talk about nationality, when we talk about property, we have to make sure we're using the same definition. The things that we embrace as default for what is not necessarily embraced by other cultures, and we have to respect that. And if the three of us went to Brazil, for instance, where I lived for 6 months, we would all be considered three different races. We're all black here, but we go to another culture, that paradigm changes dramatically. It doesn't mean that we're not recognized as people of African descent, but we will be of different races. So we have to be conscious of that. And for those of us who are in elected position who make public policy that impacts people's lives, if we process these things through an ahistorical context, we're doing a grave injustice to the people we're supposed to be serving.
That's right.
Come on, man, speak truth now. You were preaching there for a minute. I just want you to know that I felt it in the deep place within me that I was like, yes.
He got very excited. He perked up in his chair and got very excited.
Yes, I'm like, speak truth now. Speak truth. I want to know who told William Penn that he could have a land grant here in this area of country and eventually call it Pennsylvania after himself. Now, he escaped from England because of religious freedom because he was a Quaker. He got a land grant from King George because his dad was a friend of the king's, even though he was being religiously persecuted, came over here, wiped out the Lenape Indians and the Delaware Indians that were living here, and then established this place called Pennsylvania. That's arrogance at its best.
Right. It absolutely is.
So, I mean, we need to tell some truth about the history, right? We gotta speak truth.
That's right.
I'm sorry, you had other things to do.
There's so much more to say about that, but yeah, tell us what else you've been working on at the state level.
This actually, I tend to like talking about policy and government stuff and less kind of campaigns and politics and stuff, but this one covers both grounds. I got an email from someone who was running for judge for Court of Common Pleas, who was highly rated by the Philadelphia Bar Association. Highly rated is a very rare distinction. That means you were like, you know, top of your class. You're doing everything you're supposed to and then some. And she emailed me saying that she's dropping out of the race because she got a bad ballot position. Because so many people are running for 6 vacancies. If there's 40 people running and you're 40, people aren't going to wait when they're trying to vote and get to work. They're not going to flip pages to get to you and vote. And so the chances of you winning, unless you invest a ton of money, are really slim, even though you may be highly qualified. So I was really upset about that. And I had been working on legislation regardless to basically allow for candidates on a ballot, when there's a lot of people running, to rotate from precinct to precinct, the order that you're on, that everyone has a fair share. So right now in Philly, you have to pull your name out of a coffee can. And if you're number one, you win. You could be, you know, you could be awful. You could be barely competent, and you'll win because you're number one. And you could, and the stats show this. That ballot position has a huge impact on people, how people vote, particularly for positions that most people are not particularly educated about, like judicial positions.
Right.
And so my bill basically says for the voting systems that have the capacity to do so, they should randomly rotate the positions of all the candidates running from division to division to make it fair.
So you're talking about across the city.
That's
so
right.
That at any one point in the election cycle, it would be rotated, and there are thousands of divisions in Philadelphia. So
that's right. So it could be citywide. If you're, for me, like if my legislative district, there are 3 wards, and there are 76 divisions. So in each division, it would be, you know, randomly assigned differently. So I wouldn't be number one at all divisions. It would be if me and there were 2 other people on the ballot, 1/3 I'd be at the top, 1/3 I'd be in the middle, 1/3 I'd be on the bottom. And that makes it fair because
it does.
how are you going to do something that makes really competent, caring folks not run? It's not because they don't have money. It's not because they have a bad resume. It's not because they have skeletons in their closet. It's because the luck of the draw. In the 21st century, we have technology that can avoid that. A good person saying, I got to drop out because I got a bad ballot position. It shouldn't come to that. So that's what my bill will do. And I think I might get some Republican support for that because this is nonpartisan. If the same would apply for Republicans if there's a lot of folks running for the same position. The other thing that I know you two are really going to like is something that came from other states. I like to see what other folks are doing. And so a number of my colleagues in other states have come together to put forth legislation to prohibit states from providing company-specific subsidies. So people are trying to bring Amazon, like Governor Cuomo did in New York, and it backfired. I'm trying to make sure that Pennsylvania never puts itself in that situation by creating some kind of big tax boondoggle to get some corporation to come in there. And so it basically says we cannot create a package to bring in a specific company. And we will work with other states in the compact so that one state is not played against the other like Amazon did masterfully. So that's something I'm really proud of because it's a form of corporate welfare.
Absolutely. And it's not fair. It's really not fair.
It's not fair. It's not fair to other businesses. It's not fair to taxpayers. It's not fair to cities. And at the end of the day, a lot of folks are bending over backwards trying to bring in these big companies. But you know what? They don't promise living wage jobs.
That's right.
They don't promise a high proportion of good family-sustaining union jobs.
Right.
They don't do things that are necessarily going to help the physical or cultural environment of our city. And so I'm trying to nip this in the bud because I don't believe that every job is created equal. You know, I'm the one who introduced the minimum wage increase bill that I'm hoping we will enact into law this year. So it's about good jobs. And so that's something that is actually being put forth in a number of states around the country, and I hope Pennsylvania will follow suit, because this is important when we talk about corporate welfare. We talk about regular welfare, and they make black women be the poster child of welfare when we know that's not the case. But we never talk about the type of welfare that our richest corporations are benefiting from at the great expense of taxpayers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you would have to really do something with surrounding states, right?
Yes.
In order,
ideally. Yeah, and not just surrounding states, but the states that are most likely to be courted by the bigger corporations.
Right.
Right. So it's really the right states as opposed to adjacent states. I mean, that would be helpful, but it's really the right state. So I'm trying to remember all the states involved. It started in New York because of what happened with Amazon, but Illinois, I'm trying to think of the other states, but it's growing. And obviously it's growing faster where there are more progressive elected officials in those state legislatures. It doesn't mean that every Democrat is for this, because a lot of Democrats, a lot of my colleagues were pro-Amazon, and I get it, because they said we're going to bring 25,000, new jobs to Philly. But I didn't trust Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust those jobs. I think the average salary of those so-called managerial jobs was $24,000.
Right. Exactly.
What kind of $24,000? What does that get you in Philly?
Right.
Come on.
While Jeff
Right,
Bezos
so-
is the richest man on earth.
Man in the world history. Exactly. So that does not impress me. We have to look at investing in the types of employers who sustain communities, not prey on them. That should be our single biggest factor.
Exactly.
Not how big or how small, not the complexion of the owner, right? Because we got some people of color who are as capitalistic as anyone else.
Absolutely.
They're not helping poor folk. They may not be helping people of color,
making money off
brown folk, right? So we need to have that metric based on how they discernibly help sustain local communities and not extract value from them at the expense of the people who live there. And the last piece I want to mention, I know we don't have a lot of time, but there was a bill introduced by my colleague, Representative Jake Wheatley, to legalize cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know what cannabis is, we call it weed, but there's also medical cannabis, which is for folks with specific medical conditions, but it's the same thing.
Right.
And then, which is already legal in Pennsylvania for certain types of ailments. You can apply and get a medical marijuana patient card and use cannabis in those ways. And then there's hemp, and hemp was just legalized through a federal bill that Donald Trump signed into law. So now hemp, where you can get CBD oil, CBD helps a lot of these conditions. We can now begin to cultivate that crop, which was huge in this country for centuries up until the 1930s. Well, the problem now is, now that cannabis is legal for medicinal purposes, and 100,000 Pennsylvanians have patient cards to say that they can legally buy this stuff, and a lot of them are seniors. A lot of folks who are in a lot of pain are these first 100,000 folks who are patients. Well, if you consume that cannabis in one way, whether it's a tincture like a drop or an ointment or vaping, and it's in your system, and let's say you vape some cannabis to help with your chronic pain, your multiple sclerosis, whatever, and then 30 days later you're driving, you get pulled over by the cops, and they want to do a test to see if you've been consuming any alcohol or whatever, and they find that you have traces of cannabis in your system, you can get a DUI, even if you're not impaired. We're talking about in your system for weeks after you consume something legally. So you're talking about a lot of people who, just by doing the right thing, by consulting their doctor, by consulting the on-hand pharmacist at the dispensary to do something to help them with their suffering, they are exposing themselves to potential DUIs if they get stopped, even if they're not driving impaired. And that's ultimately it. So my bill is the cannabis-related DUI bill, which seeks to reform our law here to make it similar to Alabama, where the standard for DUI is impairment. Can you drive? can you walk and talk? Can you put your finger on your nose? Do all of those things that show if you're actually able to drive a motor vehicle versus some bad science to suggest that because you have a little bit of this from a month ago means that you were recklessly driving, which is absurd. So that's a bill that I've introduced as well, because that's going to hit a lot of folks. And I get calls and emails from people who are telling me these awful stories, and they're ruining their lives.
Yeah.
They're just trying to get care.
Well, thank you, State Rep Chris Rabb. Your docket is full.
Yes.
We appreciate you sharing what you're working on, because it's always progressive, lifting the standards for us and what we should be expecting for ourselves, and working towards fairness in the system. So we really appreciate you and your work, and we love having you on.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
All right. Have a great weekend. You are listening to Solutions on Word with Amati Braxton and Bishop Dwayne Royster. We'll be right back.
Since 1904, Philly's top sandwich pros and homemakers have always started the exact same way, with those legendary Amoroso's rolls baked fresh daily. Word family, put Amoroso's rolls on your shopping list for your kids' school lunches and your next family gathering. Want to make your very best sandwiches? Always start with the very best sandwich rolls. Pick them up today at your favorite supermarket or food store. Amoroso's, why Philly's sandwiches are world famous. Einstein Bariatrics wants to talk with you about how losing weight can impact every aspect of your life. They know weight loss surgery is no easy decision, but will be with you every step of the way. With nationally recognized expertise and a full team to support you from the moment you reach out, Einstein is committed to doing whatever it takes to help you succeed long after your surgery. They've already helped thousands start a new chapter in their lives and will do the same for you. This changes everything. Get started with a free information session at EinsteinWeightLoss.com.
Come to the 2019 Faith and Spiritual Affairs Health Justice Conference on Friday, April 26th from 8 to 4 p.m. The city is building a movement for community health, healing, and justice in Philadelphia. Dress comfortably for yoga, line dancing, and other joyful movement. Learn more about this free event at foodfitphilly.org/healthjusticephl. Co-hosted by the Philadelphia Department of Public Health and the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services.
Hey loves, this message is for parents and grandparents. I want to talk to you about your kids and the schools they attend every day. Is something wrong? Are the programs and classes letting both of you down? Does your child struggle with reading and basic math? Is the inflexible schedule of your elementary, middle, or high school turning your world upside down? Is your child being bullied or intimidated on a daily basis at school? If some of these questions apply to you, maybe it's time to contact Commonwealth Charter Academy. CCA is a public cyber charter school exclusively serving students in Pennsylvania, grades K through 12, at no cost to families. CCA provides internet service reimbursement and a laptop, all at no cost to families. Check out their open house on Monday, April 15th in Center City, and Tuesday, April 16th in Norristown. Visit ccaeducate.me today for details. That's ccaeducate.me.
The Kimmel Center offers free arts education programs to schools across the region. Teaching artists visit classrooms to educate, engage, and inspire the next generation using creative learning experiences, and schools take trips to the Kimmel Center for live performances. The Kimmel Center is committed to educating Philadelphia's youth by providing access to quality arts. For more information, visit kimmelcenter.org. We are progressive and proud and interactive. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at onWURD. This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live at wordradio.com. Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. Word TV. Black Talk Media.
Welcome back to Solutions on WRD. This is Amati Braxton and Dwayne Royster. Well, we got a lot of information from State Rep Chris Rabb about work that he's doing on our behalf in Harrisburg and on behalf of all Pennsylvanians, and so we deeply appreciate that. We want to open up the phone lines now at 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. Or if you're outside of the Philly area, you can call toll-free 1-866 866-361-0900. As always, our most important guest every single week here on Solutions is you, our listeners, to be able to engage in conversation and dialogue with us about what's happening in your community and what's happening around the world. So there's this question that Amadi and I have been batting around all week long, and we're just kind of a little frustrated by the Democratic presidential field, in that there's been all this conversation about the role of black women, right, in the Democratic Party, and the role of people of color in the Democratic Party, and how people are getting excited, about that, and that really the Democratic Party is supposed to be sort of the rainbow coalition. Yet, there's a poll that just came out in New Hampshire that basically says Biden, who has not officially joined the race, leads with 23% vote. Sanders got 16%. Buttigieg has got 11%. Elizabeth Warren is in 4th place. And we don't get to any people of color until we get to Kamala Harris and Kamala Harris, who's in 5th place right now in all the race. And Cory Booker is just not even in view at the moment.
And there was a similar poll in Iowa, I think, in the last couple of days that showed the same order of popularity or whatever. Yeah. I don't even know what these... I mean, at this point in time, these polls are measuring, like, name recognition and, like, who has penetrated the mainstream so that people recognize their names because they've heard them before, they've heard them speak, or they've heard them be talked about in the media. But... I mean, the question, this came up for me after watching last weekend on Joyanne Reed's show on MSNBC. They started a conversation, of course, their segments are like 5 minutes long, so they can't really ever get too in-depth on, I mean, sometimes they get in-depth. So they had started this conversation about, all this talk that this is the most diverse field of presidential candidates ever. In terms of the number of women running, I mean, because previously it was basically like Hillary was the only woman,
yes,
who was even seen as a contender.
Right.
This time around, you have Elizabeth Warren, you have Kamala Harris, you have
Amy Klobuchar,
Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. You have
what's her name from Hawaii?
The woman from Hawaii. What is her name?
I can't think of her name right now. That's terrible of me.
And then also. The woman from New York.
Yeah, Kristen Gillibrand.
Yeah. So there's all these women running. And,
Tulsi Gabbard is
Tulsi Gabbard, right. Yeah. And a number of them are seen as real legitimate candidates who have the, typical experience that a presidential candidate should have, et cetera.
Right.
And then you have people of color running, Kamala Harris again, Cory Booker, et cetera, Julian Castro. And yet and still... when people are talking about who will, what a ticket would look like on the Democratic side, the people who are the top in the polls are the Bernie Sanders, the Joe Bidens, Beto O'Rourke. Buttigieg now is like, he
went to number 3, and Beto O'Rourke dropped, which is really surprising.
So Buttigieg is up there. So they're all white men.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so the question becomes... in this period where people are so desperate to have Trump out, right, and feel like we're in this high stakes moment, is it a risk to put forth a woman candidate or a black candidate as the front runner? Because there's a lot of talk about, we should have Biden and, paired with, Biden as the presidential nominee and Kamala as his number 2, right? Or
Stacey Abrams is the other name keeps coming up.
Right. So people feel like it's a risk, basically, to put a black woman who has never gotten to this level this close to winning, even going for the presidency.
Right.
Is that a risk that we can't afford to take? Because if we lose, if the bet we make goes sour, then we're going to end up with Trump for another 4 years. And that's that. So that's the question. And I'm like, you know, and people say, well, Barack Obama did it. He crossed that threshold.
Right.
But was he just an outlier because he was just such a spectacular, special person in terms of his charisma and style and what have you? So, you know, I don't know.
At least half of him was. That's really what they were trying to say.
The white half?
Yes. I'm just saying. I mean, you know.
Okay, I'm just going to move on from that comment. So I guess my point is it too risky to put 100% of our money behind Kamala Harris or an Elizabeth Warren, for that matter? Do we need to pair somebody together? Or like, is it too risky? Is it a risk we're willing to take, I guess?
So
that's what that, you know, and maybe that's the question that the mainstream media is at, is maybe that's what's behind all of this talk of like the people of color and the women need to be number 2 on the ticket.
I have major problems with all this, but anyway.
I know you're getting ready to go on a rant. I can feel it. I'm just looking at you right now.
I'm trying to be really good. I'm trying to be really good. Okay, we want to hear from the callers, though. We want to know what you all think. 215-634-8065, 1-866-361-0900. Why are the white dudes at the top of the ticket right now? And Buttigieg, who came out of nowhere, is now number 3.
Yep.
So how did that happen? And you know, what do you think about the fact that women or a woman of color leading the Democratic Party? Why are people afraid? That's really what it comes down to. Why are they afraid?
Well, and part of it too, I mean, and again, part of the risk here is that, you know, if we could rely on white people to do the right thing, it wouldn't be a risk. Right? If there's a significant portion of the electorate,
I don't know if it's all white.
If there's a significant portion of the electorate that's white, right, which we know that is, will they vote for Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, or will they vote for Senator Elizabeth Warren at the top of the ticket?
Well, watch this though. I want to point something out.
Or Stacey Abrams.
So there's a breakdown of this poll. So by sex,
which one? The New Hampshire?
This is the New Hampshire poll that just came out a day ago. The breakdown by sex. So female, a woman, 25% of women support Biden. 14.9% of women support Sanders. 11.5% of women support Buttigieg. 7.7% of women support Warren, and 4.8% support Harris. That's a very interesting number. That it's so the biggest group of support that Biden has out of everybody is women. So what's that saying? I'm trying to figure that out. You know, I always say all the time, self-hatred is a terrible thing.
They like those hugs?
So they wanted to kiss on the back of the head. Is that what it is? that's what they're looking for, you know. I'm trying to get that in. I'm sorry. I was bad, Dwayne. Bad, Dwayne. So, I mean, when you look at that, so here, women are not even supporting their own women candidates.
Yeah, that's the issue. That's the problem.
Right, that's a big problem. I'm trying to find the racial breakdown. I don't know if they did the racial breakdown.
They probably didn't if it was New Hampshire.
No. Although I was up in New Hampshire, I've been working with folk in New Hampshire about doing work around the presidential campaigns and really making some demands on these candidates. And there's actually a lot more people of color up there than you know, because there's a large refugee population up there. So that constitute folk of color, mostly Africans and folk from Southeast Asia. So there's a great
similarly in Portland, Maine, there's a huge
yeah, absolutely.
There's a huge immigrant population up there. Friends of mine teach in a public school up there, and they teach classrooms where there's like 20 different languages in the class.
Yeah, I was just there, 4 weeks ago in Portland, doing I spent the weekend up there. Actually called into the show from Maine. And
okay, that's where you were.
Yeah, I was one of the locations. I was in Maine. The other one was in New Hampshire.
You could have visited Val from Maine.
I could have. I didn't even think about reaching out and calling Val and just checking.
Although that would have been a few hours away, I think, from where he is. But anyway.
Well, look, the phone lines are open, but we actually have to go to another break. So 215-634-8065. Give us a call. Check in with us. Tell us what you think about this. I mean, you all should be thinking about the presidential races. This is actually a critical issue that's going to come up in our community. You know, I know Pennsylvania is a little bit later in the primary season, but folk in New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina are already lining up, and they're actually going to shape this race for you. So we need to know what your opinions are about this. You know, let us know who's your candidate. I'm curious to hear who your candidate is. Who are people thinking about supporting right now?
Right, at this stage,
right,
knowing that you can change your mind,
absolutely.
Of course.
The polling is not going to occur for another 18 months, so you got time. Well, actually another year. So, but you got time. But call in and let us know who your candidate is. 215-634-8065. You're listening. Oh, go ahead.
And when we come back from the break, I would like to list the candidates who said that they would sign H.R. 40, the reparations bill, into law.
Awesome.
And those who have equivocated on that issue.
Absolutely. We should talk about that. Okay.
All right. So you're listening to Solutions on Word. We'll be right back.
The Source.
The Source.
Weekdays, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Special guest host Renation Platan every Monday in April.
The Source. Exclusively on Word Radio and WordRadio.com. The Sweet Treat Hut is the highest rated juice bar in Philly, located on the corner of 50th and Thompson Streets, providing delicious, healthy vegan food, juices, and smoothies. Treat yourself to a cup of happiness. Call 215-877-1471.
Listen live at wordradio.com.
In celebration of the 20th anniversary of the Drexel University Jazz Extravaganza, the Drexel University Jazz Orchestra will once again share the stage with the Howard University Jazz Ensemble. The Howard Jazz Ensemble, directed by Fred Irby III, and the Drexel Jazz Orchestra, directed by Brent White, will perform compositions by Benny Golson, Herbie Hancock, Randy Weston, Lou Donaldson, and other masters of the jazz tradition. Special guest artists for the evening will be Dr. George L. Starks Jr., former director of the Drexel University Jazz Orchestra and founder of the annual Jazz Extravaganza, and Professor Joseph Jennings, former director of the Spelman College Jazz Ensemble. The concert will take place on Friday, April 12th at 7 p.m. in the Mandel Theater, 33rd and Chestnut Streets on the Drexel University campus. The event is free and open to the public. For more information, please call 215-895-2451.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Word Radio congratulates the Philadelphia winner of our Level Up contest, Martine Augustin.
Level Up.
Despite adversity early on, Martine's work ethic, compassion for people, and incredible decision-making has made her a leader in her community and an embodiment of determination. Martine is currently a criminal justice major in her junior year at Hampton University. She plans to pursue her law degree so that she can better serve her community someday as a Supreme Court justice. At just 20 years old, she has been a volunteer at Say Yes to Education, the Kwanzaa Cooperative, Ngoma Tribute to the Drum, Asada Sankofa Sisterhood, and she founded her own organization, AOA, Ambition Overcomes Adversity, where she mentors young people to overcome any obstacles they may face. Through focus, a loving and supportive community, and sheer will, Martine Augustin has certainly leveled up.
Level Up.
Looking for Afrocentric art, gifts, home decor, accessories, custom framing, and so much more? Visit LaBelle Art Gallery, located at 53 Kings Highway East in Haddonfield, New Jersey, or online at labelleartgallery.com. Host your own private event in this beautiful gallery today.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now.
Tune in on YouTube at onWURD
or on Facebook at Forward.
Word TV.
Black Talk Media.
Welcome back to Solutions on WRD. This is Amadi Braxton and Dwayne Royster.
And I'm Amadi Braxton, and you're Dwayne Royster.
Yes. I'm just doing like the general thing. I'm not really trying to claim it like, you know, we once did.
We don't have to identify who's who, you know.
Yeah, that's right, you know. That's what I'm saying.
So when before we went to the break, I was talking about which candidates so far have come on record to support H.R. 40. I think this is the most recent list, although so many people are jumping into the race. I may have missed somebody. But so far, and this is the bill that would set up a commission to study the issue of reparations in America for descendants of slavery. So far it's Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Julian Castro, Beto O'Rourke, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, and two people who you may have not even heard of that are running, Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, she's a New Age minister.
Yes. And Andrew Yang. Have you seen Andrew Yang?
I know who Andrew Yang is. He believes in universal basic income. I actually support that idea.
Yes. He believes in universal basic income and a number of other cool things. And he's an economist.
Yeah. But he's not going to win. But
he is not going to win, but he is presenting some good ideas. I mean, that's, I think, what's beautiful about the depth of this field that is out there right now on the Democratic side for president is that they're all bringing really interesting policy ideas that I hope that they kind of push each other to adopt. And hopefully the best ideas will get pushed up to the top, and then people will take them up. Because if one person comes out with an interesting policy idea, other people are going to have to respond to that.
Right.
So, yeah, the universal basic income thing. I saw him speak at a clip from because he was invited by the National Action Network at their recent event where they had a lot of the presidential candidates, and he talked about freeing all of the people that have been locked up for drug convictions related to marijuana possession, since marijuana is like now becoming legal everywhere.
Right.
Like, why are these people
like smoking cigarettes
still sitting in jail?
Right.
So setting them free, and he made a point to clarify that for him, the universal basic income piece, where he I think he talks about giving $1,000 a month to everybody.
Yep.
That would not that reparations would be on top of that. That would not be a substitute for reparations. So anyway, interesting candidates, interesting ideas.
So let me just say that there are 20 declared presidential candidates right now.
Wow.
2 in the Republican Party, and then 18 in the Democratic Party. There are 3 candidates who are African American or somewhat African American who are running at this moment. So you got
somewhat
Cory Booker,
okay,
Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris claims that she's both Indian and actually she's Caribbean. She's not even really
right. Her father was from Jamaica.
Right, he's from Jamaica. And then
but she went to Howard, so she black.
Well, she's trying to be black. She ain't treat black folk like that. Well, anyway, that's another thing. And then Wayne Messam, who is the mayor of Miramar, Florida, who is running as well. Miramar, Florida.
I never heard of Miramar.
Actually, did you ever see the movie Top Gun?
Yes.
Okay. So Miramar is actually where the Top Gun school is in they train Navy's most elite pilots. That's where he is. He's the first black mayor of that city. He's got progressive stances on guns, immigration, environmental issues. He is an American born to Jamaican parents. So he's hoping to tap into the Caribbean American community to help him in his race. So he and Kamala Harris are actually in the same way because of who she's
So he was like, if Mayor Pete can do it, I can do it. Mayor Wayne from Miramar.
Yes, so Mayor Wayne.
That's cool.
But nobody's actually heard of him.
I've never heard of him, and I didn't even know he was running
and
until
actually,
right now.
What's been interesting is that Andrew Yang has been trying to help Marianne Williamson get enough donors so that she can get on the debate stage. So he's actually been out helping to raise money for her.
Really?
Yes.
So wait, does he have enough donations to get on the debate stage?
I think he actually does.
Wow.
I mean, it's like barely. I think he had that 45,000 or 46,000.
65,000 individual donors.
Right. So I think he has that. But he was also he was out telling people, he's like, give to her because I want to see her on the debate stage. She's got some really great ideas that we hear about that.
I would like to see her on the debate stage too.
So I'm like, wow.
Because her framework is about healing that our society has been traumatizing us and traumatizing people.
Absolutely.
And how do we heal from that? So I like she has a spiritual healing kind of approach, and we need part of that to be in the discourse of politics, frankly.
Yes. So here's who's still likely to run. So Joe Biden has not declared, but he's likely to run once they figure out what to do with him kissing people in the head. And then Steve Bullock, I'm sorry, but it's the case, right? You know, it's true. He's very touchy-feely.
He likes to connect.
And I mean, you know, we do have to talk about consent. We got to talk about consent because people, you know.
And personal space and boundaries and all of that.
Absolutely. So, and then Steve Bullock, who's the governor of Montana, is actually thinking about running as well. So in the Democratic side, and then on the Republican side, which I was shocked to hear, that Larry Hogan, who is the governor of Maryland, who hates Trump, by the way, he absolutely hates Trump, is thinking about running, and then John Kasich is thinking about running. And then, you know, might run still, and which would be exciting to see her get in the race, is Stacey Abrams.
Yes, I would love to see her in the race. I would love,
if Stacey Abrams got in the race, that's my horse, for lack of a better term. And I just, you know, because politics is my sport. I was actually on another program earlier today, and somebody was talking about sports, and they were asking me a question. I'm like, I don't know anything about basketball, football, baseball, or anything else. Politics is my sport. I'm just very clear about that. I know who I am. So anyway, if Stacey Abrams jumps in the race,
but just don't equate a black woman to an animal, please.
Okay, well, that was not the point.
I know. I'm just saying.
I was actually going to invite people earlier. I'm like, who's the horse? Who's your horse in the race?
Okay.
It was not referring to a black woman. It could have been Biden. They could have been somebody.
Beasts of burden.
Yes. Well, I hear you on that.
Race horses are not treated well in the racing industry. They are abused.
Well, neither are politicians, for that matter, after they lose. So you gotta kind of go in obscurity. You do. I've done that. I've lost. I've run races, and you go into obscurity. It's not pleasant.
Well, it depends what level you're at.
Yeah. Well,
Obama's not going into obscurity.
Well, no, but he didn't lose a race. He won his races.
Are you talking about when people lose? Okay,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I
said when they
part.
lose, you don't get treated very well. You got to go into obscurity, and that's a real challenge to the ego. Let me tell you, I've been there.
Okay, sounds like a personal problem.
Yes.
Stacey Abrams did not go into obscurity. Beto O'Rourke did not go into obscurity.
No, Andrew Gillum didn't either.
And Andrew Gillum did not.
No. And I mean, I think that there's some, well, first of all, in each of those elections, they lost their elections not by the virtue of the voters, but by the scam of the politicians.
Stolen.
They were stolen races, right? So, I mean, I can't speak so much for Beta's race in Texas, but definitely for Andrew Gillum, and then also definitely for Stacey Abrams, those races were stolen.
Absolutely.
And there was a lot of conniving going on about trying to prevent people and doing a lot of voter oppression. Of course, I think Texas does a lot of voter oppression too. So could very well be in the case for Beto O'Rourke as well. So anyway, I mean, it's a real interesting field of people that are going to be running for president. Who are you thinking about? Who's at the top of your mind right now?
Me?
Yeah. Are you Kamala?
I support Kamala. I'm sorry, Kamala.
Kamala, yes.
But I think Elizabeth Warren is up there for me.
Okay.
I think she has, part of it for me is who is demonstrating that they have a very tight ship that they're running.
Yeah.
That they have really good people working on their campaign who have their act together, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Who have really good policy positions and has a history that does not have some negative things that they have to overcome.
Yeah.
So I like Elizabeth Warren mostly because I feel like she is a fighter and that she is going to fight for people. She is going to fight for working people.
Sure.
And she's going to fight against the corporate takeover of our government. And that's what she's been doing her whole career. So I like her. Yeah, I like her right now. I think she would be my candidate right now. We'll see how things, shake out.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to support whoever, for the most part, I think the Dems put up in for the general. Right.
Got to.
So I'll be honest with you, I'm a little ambivalent right now
About everybody?
Yeah, pretty much.
You were a Bernie guy.
I was a Bernie guy.
Last
big
time around.
I was very much a Bernie guy.
So what happened?
So I was hurt by Bernie.
I was just going to say, what'd Bernie do to you? Because you were a delegate for Bernie in Pennsylvania, right?
I was running to be a delegate, yeah. After the November elections, and Bernie Sanders was commenting on Stacey Abrams and Andrew Gillum's race, and he said...
So this past midterm?
Yeah. He said that just because you don't vote for somebody because they're a person of color doesn't mean that you're a racist. And I was like...
Wait a minute, what?
He said, referring to Stacey Abrams and Andrew Gillum races, they both lost their races.
Right.
And he was really
slim margins.
By slim margins. And they were referring to white folk. It was a conversation about the white folk who basically were Dems and progressives that voted for their opponents. And Bernie was, I guess, trying to defend them, saying just because they voted for somebody else, he was trying to clean it up. And what it came out was basically he was saying that just because you decide not to vote for somebody who's a different person of color, doesn't necessarily make you a racist. But I'm like, if that's the only reason you're not voting for somebody, because they're a person of color, it's racist. It's absolutely racist.
It's because of the color of their skin that you're not voting for them. So what does that say?
So I was hurt,
especially if they're a Democrat and they're voting for like these Republicans who they were not just like your typical old school centrist Republican.
No,
they were like
Trumpers.
super reactionary. Particularly the guy in Florida.
Yeah,
the Florida guy was
DeSantis.
horrible.
Yeah,
DeSantis.
Yeah, and the guy in Georgia was bad too, and so. I was really hurt, and
you took that personally.
I took it personally, and not only did I take it personally, but I've talked to the people, the upper echelon leaders in the campaign.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you need to clean this up.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we hear you. But at the same time that came out, there was also the scandal about his staff and what the staff was doing. Now,
was the sexual harassment stuff?
Well, I do not hold a candidate responsible for the staff. Most of these candidates don't even know who the staff folk are. I mean, they can set a standard as anybody does, but no business can ultimately control what somebody's going to do. Now, when you find out about it, you get rid of them. But, he didn't know about it, a lot of this stuff. Nobody was bringing this to him. They have people that actually run the campaigns, and the candidates really, there's a team that runs the candidate. And I think we think that the campaigns are run like the candidate's a CEO of a corporation. It actually doesn't work quite that way. So... I was like, but that came out at the same time. But I think they were more concerned about the reaction from women than they were about this. And then the second thing that came up with Bernie was that there was a whole conversation. There was people trying to do a campaign with Bernie and Stacey Abrams trying to run together. And I reached out to my contacts in Georgia. And I was like, what's up with this? And trying to get some heads up. And they were like, yeah, we've been hearing about it too, but we don't know what the deal is or why even anybody would suggest that. So, there was just a lot of issue with that all the way around. So, I mean, honestly, here's my whole thing about Bernie Sanders. If you blindly take a look at Bernie's platform, take the name. If you take everybody's platforms and you take all their names off and you put them side by side and compare them, and you ask yourself the question, whose platform is in the best interest of African-American communities or communities of color, without a shadow of a doubt, Bernie Sanders' platform will outstrip everybody else's platform for what's in the best interest of communities of color. It absolutely will. And he's more progressive than Harris. He's more progressive than Warren. He's more progressive than Booker. Booker's pretty much still in bed with Wall Street. Maybe Yang's got some principles but doesn't have all the other pieces that are there. So there's this thing that gets me about Sanders, because his platform is really my platform, right? His story is really my story. And so I am, what he wants to do is really what I want to do. And so I care about that. But then there's these other things that keep coming up, things that are being said or what he's doing that I'm just like, what are you thinking?
Like, for example?
The statement about, what happened with Gillum and Stacey Abrams, right? The fact that he did not come out in front of reparations very quickly, that was not his biggest thing.
I mean, I think part of Bernie's thing, right? Bernie had a lot of people, like a lot of Bernie supporters in the primary run against Hillary, they ended up voting for Trump.
Yeah. The Bernie Bros.
Right.
They call them the Bernie Bros. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that he is trying to appeal to a wide cross-section of white folks, even those who are not on the progressive side, but who believe in or who are attracted to his populist ideas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So you don't necessarily have to be on the left to support some of these things, or people would not necessarily identify themselves as being progressive or on the left to get behind some of his policies. And so that's who he wants to appeal to. I mean, he's the only Democratic primary candidate who basically has a strategy for going on Fox News and addressing that audience.
Yeah, that's bold. That's bold.
Yeah.
I've been on Fox News. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Let me tell you. There's a video out there of me and Tucker Carlson. Have you ever seen the video?
No.
I went on Tucker Carlson's show.
You should post it on our Facebook feed.
I'll post it on the Facebook feed. But I took on Tucker Carlson. It was ugly.
He's a dweeb.
Anyway, we're up on a break actually. So
okay.
We need to go to break. So I'm going to post this feed on the Facebook page while we're on break. But we're taking your calls when we come back. 215-634-8065 or 1-866-361-0900. This is Dwayne Royster, and that's Amadi Braxton.
That's right.
We'll be right back.
Don't miss the Electric Magazine Show, hosted by Cody Anderson and Vicky Leach. Saturday mornings from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. Exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Support independent black media and join the onWURD movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com.
Easter is approaching, and Leo's has the best selection of men's and boys' suits and tuxedos in all sizes, featuring Sean John and Steve Harvey. Men's suits start at $99, and boys' suits start at $49. Check out the largest selection of men's straw hats and caps, featuring Biltmore, Dobbs, Stetsons, Bailey, and Kangol, with the largest inventory of Stacy Adams shoes for men and boys in North Philadelphia. Leo's is a one-stop shop located at 2705 Germantown Avenue. Ask about the WURD family discount.
Hey loves, this message is for parents and grandparents. I want to talk to you about your kids and the schools they attend every day. Is something wrong? Are the programs and classes letting both of you down? Does your child struggle with reading and basic math? Is the inflexible schedule of your elementary, middle, or high school turning your world upside down? Is your child being bullied or intimidated on a daily basis at school? If some of these questions apply to you, maybe it's time to contact Commonwealth Charter Academy. CCA is a public cyber charter school exclusively serving students in Pennsylvania, grades K through 12, at no cost to families. CCA provides internet service reimbursement and a laptop, all at no cost to families. Check out their open house on Monday, April 15th in Center City and Tuesday, April 16th in Norristown. Visit ccaeducate.me today for details. That's ccaeducate.me.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at onWURD. Word TV. Black Talk Media.
Welcome back to Solutions. This is Amadi Braxton along with Bishop Dwayne Royster.
Hello.
And we have been talking about our favorite sport.
Yes, politics.
Politics, national politics. And I should say that next week, it looks like we have secured Salawa Ogunmefen from OnePA, who's going to be talking about the candidates that OnePA is going to be endorsing in the city elections here in Philadelphia. So we'll get to dig in a little bit on the different candidates running in our local elections next week, and hopefully you'll call in and give us your thoughts on who's running and who you're supporting at the local level as well. Mm-hmm. So that's exciting because I like to dig into that stuff too. But if you'd like to join the conversation in the final 20 minutes or so that we have left here on Solutions this week, you can call 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065. So of the people running,
mm-hmm.
And again back to the Democratic primary for the presidential election, what are a couple of like the most interesting policy proposals that you've heard so far? We've mentioned a couple already.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm trying to think about interesting. So Andy Yang's notion of universal basic income, which would basically give folk $12,000 a year, that they cannot use as a vehicle to leverage for other things, I think is really important, right? So
what do you mean they can't invest the money in the stock market or something?
Right, they can't. There's a way that the money has to be used, and it's basically just a resource for daily living kind of things.
Right.
And so, like, you can't borrow against future money that you're going to get in other years.
Oh, I see.
So there's some limitations on what the money is. So, I mean, I think that idea.
But you can spend the money on your living expenses.
Yes, it's designed to be spent. It's really designed to be an economic stimulus.
Right.
So, I mean, if anybody understands economics, trickle down does not work. If you really want to transform the economy, you give people who are the lowest economic groups money because they are 100% consumers.
Right.
They're going to spend their money, and that will actually stimulate the economy.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's why, cutting welfare and stuff was a dumb idea.
Yes, absolutely. So
or the welfare to work BS.
Right.
I have so many feelings about that. But anyway.
So I think that's actually really probably the most exciting one. I mean, I think everybody's talking about reparations right now of some sort, one way or the other. I think that's good. I think there's a lot of conversation around criminal justice reform that's out there. But I mean, everybody's kind of, coming up with their own plan. Certainly Julian Castro has both a reparations plan and an immigration plan. He's the only one that's actually put a plan so far.
Around immigration.
Around immigration that would be really helpful.
So we have a couple callers on the line. Let's go to Val in Maine. Hi, Val.
Hi, greetings, salutations to the both of you.
Thank you.
How are you? What's on your mind?
Well, a couple of things. First, Marianne Williams, I'm hoping gets on the thing because I caught 2 interviews with her, and I was amazed, and I'm just amazed by what she brings, what she would bring to a panel.
Yeah.
And also she has her own reparations form that ideas and what she thinks it should do and how you would implement it. So that's just one of the things. I'm into several different candidates. I'm into 5 of them. But my favorite game right now is matching this one and this one and this one and that one and stuff like that. Like moving tiles around.
So who's your dream team right now?
Enjoying that part. Well, I kind of was liking. Well, I kind of was liking Kamala and Buttigieg. Kamala first, Buttigieg second. I was kind of liking Elizabeth Warren first, and actually, just one big difference. I think Elizabeth Warren is way more progressive than Bernie, but that's a whole other story. I won't get into it, but I think she's more progressive than Bernie. And I'm struggling with Bernie because of the Bernie bros as well. And also some income tax stuff that might be in the thing, but connected to his wife.
Oh, interesting.
That I heard, stuff like that. But the point, what I'm calling about right now specifically is in the last several days, and you know how I monitor a lot of different media sources, I really, really, really got how outraged white America was for Obama being president. And when I say really, really, really got, the money that are actively working and they're taking. The reason why we got Trump is because they could not get over that black man won.
Yeah.
And
that's really true.
Huge money. And I'm like, and then the other day, and I've been listening to a lot of different general interviews, and I listened to a white woman who supposedly had a master's degree, and even though she, I listened to her right now in 2019 defend Trump. She was just a call-in person, and I don't like what he says, and I argue with my husband, blah, 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 And I'm like, whoa, white America, you know. And so for me, I don't know if you can rely on white women again, that 53 to 54%.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to monitor the American public. That's what I'm concerned with. So hence you have all these white men right now generically leading, you know,
right.
You know, stuff like that. But white America really, and you know that old saying that I told you about what my grandmother's saying, Amadi knows this, you know, is yours until a white man wants it. My grandmother used to say that to me all, Grandma, can I have another glass of lemonade? Of course, honey, unless a white man wants it.
Wow.
You know,
wow.
She was preparing me. I didn't know till I got older. I was like, oh, she was letting me know.
Wow. Deep.
And so hence a lot of the Republican response. And then also I'm watching the lack of defense from Democrats for the new fresh crop. You know, there's not really a defense for
Ilhan Omar and
AOC or you know, I'm like, whoa. So I'm like really monitoring that. So the monitoring for me is white America and the outrage of the powers that cannot believe that this, you know what I mean? So the whole thing, when decided on the night of Obama's inauguration not to go along with no matter what anything they wanted.
McConnell.
Yeah, McConnell, the lizard, turtle lizard.
Right.
He made that decision, but that wasn't. Well, he led that decision, but I'm like, well, who was the voice behind him?
Right.
Now, I've heard some other stuff now, you know what I mean?
Right. And there were people in the room with him, too, that were going along.
And then the level of think tanks, you know what I mean? So I'm like, who's throwing money and who's, you know, you know, say, behind closed doors. So that's what I'm wondering and monitoring. So, like what you mentioned earlier, like what our progressive allies do.
Right.
But you know, what's the tone of them?
Right. Well, thank you, Val, for your thoughts as always, and thank you for sharing who your potential dream teams would be, because that's what we want to hear. Who would you pair together? But we have to let you go and go to our next caller. We have B from Delaware on the line.
Good evening, Bishop Amadi.
Good evening.
Word family. I have a new name for you and the word host, as well as Brett Brad. I think you are all the solutions whisperers. And
Thank you.
Now, we need solutions whisperers, because if we don't do a lot better for 2020 than simply say we've got to get rid of Trump. At this juncture, I thought after taking over the House that enough information would come out that the American public would be outraged enough to say it is time for him to go, and he should never even contemplate running in 2020. But I look at the polls, and I understand that numbers don't lie, but liars figure for polls. And polls appear to tell us what they want us to think rather than what we actually do think based on how they take them. And I think we can't continue to talk about the other people. We probably will all go to the polls. We will take our families, we will take our friends and our associates with us. But we are going to have to offer a lot more than we just don't want Trump in 2020 to the rest of those of us and the younger people who are reluctant to go to the polls.
Right. We got to offer them something more affirmative and affirming than just being against Trump.
Exactly. But we want to see some results from the outpouring that occurred in 2018. We went out, we sent a message, we the American public, and we have a right to think that there are going to be some changes in our public policy to reflect what the people said at the polls. So far, it's not occurring. And it's not enough for Trump to resist folks asking him to fess up about the things that we need to know. Congress has oversight. Congress should be able to get that information, and we should be able to make appropriate assessments.
Absolutely, I would totally agree with you, B, on that. And I'm waiting for congressional leaders to have the backbone to fight. Nancy Pelosi has pretty much said she doesn't want to pursue this. I think because she's afraid she's going to inflame Trump's base and get them all fired up for the election. But look, I'm sorry, we got to go. We're actually at the end of our show. But thank you for calling in, B. We always appreciate it when you do, and look forward to your commentary with us here on Solutions. Well, it's been a great week. Week number 2 of Solutions on WURD.
Yes. Very excited about solutions.
Yeah, very excited about solutions. We're trying to come up with solutions to solutions to the problems that are impacting our folk. Big shout out to Troy Wilmore, who produces this show for us so capably each and every week. Monty Braxton, thank you so much for your partnership in this journey.
Thank you, Bishop.
The Chris Rabb, who joined us on the show today, and to Val and B and others who called in on tonight. We deeply appreciate everything that you are saying and doing out in the streets and in your community every single day. Any final thoughts?
Final thought, we're going to be all right.
Yes. In the very end, we will be all right.
Yes.
Coming up next is Envy McKee on The Lounge. You are listening. This has been Solutions on WURD with Monty Braxton and Dwayne Royster. Go out and change the damn world.
Peace.
Love, we do it.